Let's look at our first essay. I know that summer term goes fast, but hang on to your seats. Honestly, though, it's a manageable workload, I feel. So let's click our first essay prompt, which is this one, Autoethnography Paper. Let's go ahead and click that and download it. And let's look at this prompt. Oops, I'm blocked out there. All right. This word, autoethnography. So the prefix auto means self, and an ethnography, simply put, is the detailing of a culture. So when you see those documentaries on PBS or National Geographic, where an anthropologist goes into a remote village in the Amazon and spends time with a tribe, and then subsequently presents us with a detailed documentary about the customs and the social hierarchy and the religious beliefs and the types of food eaten by the tribe and the dialect utilized by the tribe and even the aesthetic. All of this is an ethnography. Now, if we add this prefix auto, which means self, then it's a detailing of a culture that we belong to as told by ourselves, right? As told by us. So in my in my particular instance, I'm actually a drummer, so if I were to detail what it's like to be a member of my culture of drumming, then that would be an autoethnography on my part, because it's a detailing of a culture as a practitioner within this culture that I belong to, as told by myself. So again, ethnography is a detailing of a culture, and auto means self. So it's a self-detailing of a culture, and in this instance, of a culture that you belong to. So let's look at the prompt itself. Here we have a Patrick who is scoring. He's shooting the soccer ball, right? A rock climber rat. And you, sooner than you think, you'll be graduating with that cap and gown. And for my gamers out there, here's a Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. So gaming, right? That's absolutely its own culture and community. The gym, for those of you who go to the gym every week. Okay, so here's where it is. It says, whether conscious of it or not, we're all a part of different communities, and our participations within them are distinct. So here's the task. Consider one of the communities that you belong to. This can be an either personal or professional community. Describe it. How is it characterized? How is it perceived? Now, this paper has two foundational concepts that will serve as lenses through which you will proceed forward and develop this essay. And those two foundational concepts are presented here. Now, we will go into further detail of these foundational concepts next week. That's an important element of next week's module. But have no fear, because the fashion in which I have synthesized these concepts here is ample information for you to begin and putting your foot forward in crafting a draft, right, and to begin your thinking about how you will write this essay. So the first foundational concept is this. How would you characterize it as a community of practice? And simply put, a community of practice is a community where members learn through interaction and pass on tips and tricks for achieving a shared goal or objective. That comes from this article, Communities of Practice, A Brief Introduction by Etienne Wenger. So again, for it to be a community of practice, as we're going to see in further detail next week, it's it's a situation where through interaction, the knowledge is passed on and the tips and tricks are passed on. So for example, when you take a historically difficult calculus class, then that's a community of practice due to the fact that it's through the interaction of yourself and the instructor as well as your classmates around you that pass on the tips and tricks for excelling in that course by way of study groups and or some form of just individual workshops that you may have with other classmates pertaining to the class itself, right? Even, we don't have to go too far. For those of you who like to play video games all night and you watch Twitch streaming of a game, then they pass on tips and tricks to you by way of you watching that Twitch stream, right? And we'll get into this more next week. The second foundational concept is a discourse community, and that is the community's identity kits, and that includes ways of saying, doing, being, valuing, and believing. That comes from this article by a social linguist named James Paul G. So it's how you speak within that community, how you behave and act, and how you carry yourself in that community, what the values are, what the beliefs are like. We could even include the aesthetic, right? So here's some things that you can consider. How do people behave and speak in your selected community? Do people in this community dress in a particular way? Explain. So if the community of practice is the what, it's your community itself that you've chosen, that the knowledge is passed on through interaction, then the discourse community is the how. So how you navigate that particular community, how you speak in it, how you behave in it, what are the values that you have in it. And here are guiding questions. Here's this other one that pertains to this foundational concept. So provide examples of the slang or specialized language that is used in your community. What things does your chosen community value? So absolutely bring in the language. If you're going to write about the fact that you're a street skater and you are continually shredding some gnar with your broskies or whatever, then tell me what the slang that you use is. If you're at skate parks, absolutely give me examples of the slang that you use. I have had students who served in the military. They give me examples of the specialized language they're in the military. Absolutely bring in concrete examples of how you speak within said community. Consider the values too. So you absolutely must reference and introduce the concepts of community of practice and discourse community in your papers. Be sure to cite Etienne Wenger, which is the author of this first article that informs this concept, community of practice, and also cite James Paul G. for how his article informs this concept, discourse community. Now, it's important that we bear in mind that these concepts don't just materialize out of thin air, but they come to us by way of articles and the works of others. That's known as intertextuality. So yes, I want you to absolutely cite and credit these two authors as the original source for these concepts. So it'll be something like in Etienne Wenger's Communities of Practice, A Brief Introduction article. She introduces us to the concept of community of practice. You might say something like, in my community of ballet dancing, It's a community of practice because we pass on tips and tricks through our rehearsal and time together in the dance studio or whatever the case may be. And similarly, you're going to introduce this concept, and you can give examples. If you're going to do ballet, if you do ballet, then tell me about what specialized language and slang is, and talk about the clothes and so on and so forth. So if the community practice is the what, discourse community is the how. So how you navigate yourself within that community. And we are actually going to look at some examples of student sample essays for more guidance. Lastly, aside from bearing in mind these two foundational concepts, you're also going to have the aspect of personal connection, right? What's your place in your chosen community? How do you contribute to it? Do you participate within a particular niche of it? So, for example, if you're going to write about the fact that you're a skateboarder, well, what kind of skater are you? See, there's because there's vert skating, there's freestyle, slalom, street skating. So consider the niche of your community of where you belong. So this is a minimum of 3 pages. Pardon. Double space, Times New Roman, Arial. So no wingdings, folks. And we're going to look at MLA in this very module. So it'll be a little crash course there. A works cited page to cite these 2 articles. And there's a life hack that I want to present to you, and that life hack is the fact that you can simply look at the works cited pages of the student sample essays, and simply you can copy and paste that due to the fact that in this instance they are citing the 2 articles that you will be citing. So that's a cool life hack there. In terms of points, workshop participation is 20 points. So we're going to do peer review workshops, and that's coming up. And that's 20 points. I'll give more info on that. And if you use correct MLA format and have your works cited page, then that's 5 points. The essay itself is 100 for a total of 125 points. So you, like I said, in the beginning of the intro of the syllabus, you have to do these papers because they are worth quite a bit of points. And not only for you're not only doing this for the points, also to learn and grow, right? And the workshop is, as you can see, that's scheduled for next week. And the workshop means that you're going to have to begin a draft of this, okay? Now, a draft is you putting your foot forward and beginning the essay. It's not only an outline, it's not only a series of bulleted points. No, it's you actually beginning to put your foot forward and just take a stab at this essay, just beginning it. Drafts do not have to be perfect. In fact, they never are, due to the fact that writing is a recursive process, which means that it's ongoing. The final draft of this is due June 29. So if today is the 9th, then that's exactly 20 days from now. That's a good amount of time, but I just want you to be thinking about this so that it doesn't come to you like a complete surprise. Here's the skater, here's the record collector cat digging in the crates. He's digging in the crates. They're all for cool cuts. All right, so that's the autoethnography paper. Oh, I don't know what that is. All right. So let's return to the module here. And I want to show you the student sample essays. Okay, so if you click here, it says Autoethnography Student Sample Essays. You might say, Mr. Godoy, I am still lost. I would like to see an example of what this might look like. Well, you're in luck. Because here are 3 anonymous student sample essays of previous students who have completed this assignment and received at least a 90%. So you can take a look at these and see what an iteration of this assignment could potentially look like. I'm not asking you to copy it, no, just to get an idea of what this might look like. So for example, let's go ahead and zoom out. This is a tad too big. Oh. This student wrote about, let's see, being a college student. So if you're stuck and you're like, Mr. Godoy, I have no idea what community to write about. I'm boring, I'm plain, I don't belong to any community. You might say that, but listen, you're a Chaffey College student. That's a community in itself. Even the major that you have chosen, or if you haven't chosen one yet, that's okay. So you can absolutely write about that. So this student wrote about being a college student. You can take a look at that. And here's the trick that I was pointing towards. If you recall, I mentioned the life hack. So in order to get the 5 points of having the works cited and correct MLA, you need the works cited page. In this instance, you can just copy and paste this, and they are correct in all 3 of these anonymous student sample essays. So that's the first one The first one is about being a college student. That's the community that particular student selected for this assignment. Now let's take a look at this second one. The internet's a little bit slow today for some reason. This one is about being an avid tutor. So perhaps some of you took avid classes and or even were an avid tutor. So that's what this student wrote about. Let's take a look at this one. This one wrote about being a soccer player and essentially being a soccer fan, right? A soccer player and fan. So take a look at these so that you can get some idea of what a potential iteration might look like. Lastly, I want to show you the fact that I presented you with notes. I presented you with notes for these concepts here. And these are precisely the notes that we're going to go over in more detail next week. But you can go ahead and preview them, and that's the reason why I have included them here. Communities of Practice and Discourse Communities Notes. And in addition to the actual outlined notes that I have created for these source articles, I've presented you with the articles themselves as well. So you can go ahead and read those if you wish to get more idea about these concepts. But like I said, we're going to look at these concepts in further detail next week. Just know that the notes and articles are indeed here. So if some of these ideas are a little bit confusing, don't fret, because next week they should make more sense, due to the fact that much of the central focus will be upon them. All right, so that's that. Where is that? Where is that? Oh, here we go. So essentially, this paper is you choosing a community that you belong to. Like I mentioned, it can be a personal one or a professional one. Let me give you some examples of what students have written about. One student wrote about playing as a particular character in the World of Warcraft computer game. Other students have written about the fact that they play a particular position in a football team. Others have written about the gym. And let's stay with that gym example, okay? It's a community of practice because tips and tricks are passed on by way of you interacting with trainers and with if you watch YouTube videos about fitness and or even other gym goers too, right? And the language that is used in the gym includes words like sets and reps, high intensity interval training, even the names of the exercises themselves, right? And the value is of pushing yourself, of giving it your all, of not leaving anything, not leaving anything, any gas in your tank, just giving it your all, right? That's a value, and that's one that is very characteristic of the gym, okay? So be thinking about this and write about a community that you really dig being a part of. If you're in a band or if you're into indie music and you go to music shows, or you're into dream pop or another genre of music and you collect records and of that genre and you go to shows and try to speak to the bandmates after shows, whatever is the case. Whatever community that you really love being a part of, and that's what will make this a fun essay. It's supposed to be fun. So just be thinking about this, okay? I think the last thing that I'd like to point out for this one is here we go, the peer review workshop. Okay. So even though let's go ahead and click this. It's the last thing here that you will notice. Now, you'll notice that you have to submit your rough draft to this link by next Monday by 11:59 p.m. And that's only docx, and PDF. No Google Docs. If you have Google Docs, then please convert it into one of these formats before submitting it into this link. So you're going to submit your rough draft. Again, it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be completed in your mind's eye. Like, you probably know that there's more to go. I mean, it's just get it out. Just get a draft out, and that's the whole point of this. And yeah, okay, provide feedback okay, so the feedback will be due by next Saturday. So, sorry, not next Saturday, but 22nd, so 2 Saturdays from today. So this is something that we're going to do this workshop next week, okay? So your task for this week is to be working on this draft throughout this week, so that you can turn it in by next Monday by 11:59 p.m. And it's important that you follow a deadline, because I will not credit you for feedback submitted beyond that deadline. And actually, I'm going to go over the logistics of how to leave feedback and how that whole interface works. And I'm going to go through the logistics of that more next week, okay? But mainly, your primary task for this week is to come up with that draft for this autoethnography paper. If you play a sport, if you're into a video game, if you're into music, if you go to the gym, if you are very much into whatever your major is, if you're studying biology, I mean, your biology major at community college, or whatever is the case, or you're part of a math club, or I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I mean, if you're into tech and fixing computers and cell phones, and so you're into IT, or if that's your job, or whatever is the case, just select a community that you really care about. So when you have the draft, guys, you're simply going to upload it, and let's take a look at what it looks like from your end. So let's go to Student View. Let's go ahead and make this bigger. I tell you, the internet's a little bit slow today. Let's go to Student View. All right. Oh, hasn't been published yet, huh? Of course not. Hey, where did the video go? Oh, I know why. That's because I maximize this. Well, simply put, it should say Submit up here. There's going to be a tab that says Submit, and that's where you're going to upload your draft. And that is by next Monday by 11:59 p.m. I'll remind you about that in the video for next week's module as well. And like I said, I'll go over these logistics for how to leave feedback and all that, and how workshops will work. Don't fret so much about that just yet. What I do want you to do is just focus on completing this draft and uploading it to this assignment link. All right, that's it for this video. If you have questions about the paper, please reach out.